Wonderful to see some of new faces, and some of you are part of being in the community for a while now. So it's wonderful to see. Thank you for joining the live session. And also, I know some of you are going to watch the video later. Thank you for reaching out and sharing your interest. All right. So with that, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I truly appreciate your presence as we explore an important and a timely conversation. I think, as you are aware, the topic of the conversation is what is missing and why coaching skills are alone not enough when we work with children, adolescents, parents, and family systems. So today, I'm very, very excited because, usually in this space we collaborate and it's always me introducing. But today, I'm delighted to be joined by three pioneering professionals trained through the world's first ever ICF-accredited coach education specialization encompassing child, adolescent development and parenting at Ignite Global. And these practitioners work directly with parents, children, and families, bringing both professional expertise and real-world experience to this discussion today. So each one of them will share their reflections and their stories. So I'm not going to talk too much and going to invite our colleagues to share their insights. So thank you for being here, panelists. Welcome to our discussion, and also once again, welcome everyone. So with that, I would like to invite our panelists to introduce themselves briefly as an introduction to the conversation. Elodie, how about we begin with you, and then we can go to Lara and Viktorija.
Thank you, Lux. So I'm Elodie. I'm a leadership and parenting coach. So first of all, I'm a mother of three. After years in leadership, business, early childhood education, I realized that many of the challenges we face as adults often begin much earlier than we think. Today, my work sits at the intersection of leadership, parenting, and human development, guiding parents, educators, leaders, organizations to create the environments and experience that foster deeper connection, greater self-awareness, and stronger alignment, so that adults, together with the children, can become who they truly are and choose their own path.
Thank you, Elodie. Lara, would you like to introduce yourself now?
Yes, sure. First of all, I'm so happy to be here and also so happy to see familiar faces and names today. So thank you all for joining. I want to stress about one of the certifications that I have, which I've always started with. It is the youth coaching certification that always remained the core of my practice, and it's always in my heart. And the more I do it, the more I feel like I'm really living up to my purpose. I've done executives, corporate teams, entrepreneurs, young adults, teens, preteens, you name it. That remains the best part of what I do. And the reason why I took this course was basically because I wanted to be a more knowledgeable mom. And the more I read, the more I learned, the more I knew that it's not just about a specific age group, it's about several age groups, several things to take into consideration. And this course had really unlocked so much new knowledge, so much new thinking ways that I invite you all today to learn as much and, to see as much as you can what we have grasped, and basically to turn that basically into something that will create an inspiring thing for you. So here I am today with Elodie and Viktorija. Thank you, Lux. And I mean, the best thing about this is the connection that we will have tonight. And the more you learn, the more questions you have for us. So we're just here and ready for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. Viktorija?
Thank you, Lux. before I became a coach, in life before getting the CADP certification, I was studying political science and international relations. And I often say that in my 20s, I wanted to make the world a better place. I thought that's the way to go, through macro systems. And then through the corporate career and so many other things, as I was going through life, what happened is that I became a mother. And I see that's a trend for many of us who came to the certification, not necessarily for everyone. And I fell in love with neuroscience, into science about attachment, nervous system regulation, and all that. And as I was working on myself as a mother, I realized that in addition to just developmental science, I also need tools to support myself and then others to bridge that gap between knowledge about what to do with a child and being able to actually implement that practice. So that led to me doing the CADP certification and then eventually trauma-informed coaching that I still haven't finished. I'm a trainee. That's in progress. And I founded Raise Reflectively, where I work with parents of children aged 0 to 6 to raise healthy humans, to help parents raise healthy humans emotionally, cognitively, in any way, and also enjoy parenthood a bit more. And I have to be honest that when I say that when I do this work, I don't only do it because of the parent in front of me and their child, but because I have this vision of a healthier world for us all. So eventually I go back to my naive 20s, wanting to make a world a better place. I just go through a very micro of it, which is the family as a basic unit.
Thank you, Viktorija. I think that's a wonderful place for us to start with all three of your sharings, and it makes my heart truly sing to see the passion. And I think I remember every time I have a conversation with a person who wants to be enrolled in the program, I very often hear they say, I want to make the world a better place. And I think the best place to start is children. So these individuals are not just practitioners, as you can see, that they are here because their heart is at the right place. So I feel deeply honored, colleagues. Thank you so much for your passion and sharing this, joining this mission, because as you know, colleagues, as we engage in a development of a human being, in a coaching capacity, we no longer are a general coaching, operate with general coaching practitioner knowledge. We are operating in a developmental capacity where we know that child is going to have the impact of our interactions for the rest of their life. And that's what our practitioners here, our colleagues today, is going to shed light on. So those who don't know me, and I know most of you know, but I know some of you are going to be watching the video later. This will be available in public. So hi, if you do not know me yet, I am Lux Hettiyadura. I am the creator and the program director of the world's first ICF-accredited coach education specialization encompassing child, adolescent development and parenting. And like I said many times, I'm deeply honored to bring our practitioners to this discussion today, colleagues, because honestly, this specialization is not just a professional qualification. As you know, that we do not also accept everyone and any individual to this program, because we know that it takes specific essence for an individual to work with children and family systems. So when this is not just a professional certification, it's truly a movement. So everyone you see here, I know that you are part of this movement. So thank you for giving us that privilege to be accompanied by you. So today discussion is what is missing, why coaching skills are alone not enough when we work with children, parents and families. So if you know me, if you have interacted with me, I write a lot and I am very passionate about it. And I'm so thankful to ChatGPT now that it can help me with articulating my thoughts and putting them into beautifully and helping me get it correct, my thoughts into reality. So with all that, I have shared these insights earlier, that why these can be influential. But today, now you have heard my perspective. I want you to hear from our practitioners' perspective, because as you know, many traditional coaching frameworks were originally designed to work with the autonomous adult process brain and with level of cognitive, emotional, and developmental capacity. And yet, children, adolescents, and parents, we know that it's a different story for them. So, Elodie, without a further ado, in your experience, I would like to invite you to reflect a little bit about Why do you think traditional coaching approaches often fall short when applied to children, adolescents, parents, and family systems? Elodie, you are muted.
Yes, technology. So first, I believe coaching is incredibly powerful when it's granted in strong training, ethics, and evidence-based methodologies. We know coaching can help people gain clarity, shift perspective, and create sustainable changes. What led me to specialize further in child and adolescent development was actually my experience in early years. And your specialization was just a natural choice for me. And thank you for creating it. Because one of the biggest insights, again, is that we are never working with an individual in isolation. We are working with development stage, nervous system, relationship, family system, environment, a life story. And actually, a parent is not just a parent. They are first women, men, husband, partners, professional leaders, a member of family system. And they are also shaped, and thanks to you, I got to understand that even deeply, they are shaped by their own childhood experience, attachment patterns, belief, fear, relationship dynamics. All of that influence how they show up with their children today. So working alongside neuroscience-informed frameworks helped me to realize something deep. And I wish every parent, every teacher, every leaders, every coach, adult that who are guiding children can have these fundamentals, understanding of human being, of a child and adolescent. Because when we understand how children develop, how emotions work, how relationship and environment shape us, we stop judging behaviors. We start becoming curious about what is really happening underneath, and we simply breathe. When we understand the development needs for children, we can adapt our own posture as parents, as coach, as guide. And for me, this is key. We become less reactive. We become more intentional and better equipped to create the condition that allow children and adults to just be themselves. And this knowledge, what you created, for me, it's not just a nice to have. It's really a must have today. Thank you.
Thank you, Elodie. And I would like to develop this into actually inviting Lara to share an insight here. Like Elodie said, it's not just coaches. We, as professionals, we interact with children in different capacities. So Lara, why do you think that many professionals become stuck focusing on behavior, problem solving, and symptom management? The reason why I'm asking is this is you are working in a specific age that this intensify the most.
Yeah. Well, in general, I have to say, we as coaches, we dig deeper with our clients. But sometimes you find clients that are not ready to dig deeper. Sometimes they're not open. Sometimes they're not even open to consider others' perspectives. Sometimes they come with a story involving many other people. So how can we tackle, each one of them? As a coach, I mean, in our practice, we dig as much as we can to be able to provide the value that we bring into this practice and profession. Now, with families, it's really tricky because when we look into the different aspects, the systems, really, we look into the different perspectives in a much deeper view. And here, it's no more that we will be stuck on behavior. Behavior will just be an introductory thing. Soon enough, the clients, even ourselves, we see ourselves going into different realms that we don't even sometimes imagine that we are going into that. So sometimes we go into action planning, but then we realize it's not the action that we need. We go back and we go back and we go back until we fix it and we feel like, yes. So I have to say, when you are equipped with knowledge, like this specialization that we've done, the right frameworks, the areas unfold, and it's no longer the behavior, as I was saying earlier. As a coach, I have to say also that ICF markers, we have we have to talk to the client and to dig deeper into the who, the person, okay? And this is where we see that many things emerge. This is where the real awareness is created. And this is where I believe we won't be scratching any much the surface only.
Thank you, Lara. I love that, and I can't wait to dig deep into this part because I know that we are going to be looking at the PPV model, and I would like you to talk about that part. So I am going to park that because I have another insight that I would like to explore with Viktorija, given that Viktorija expand into beyond developmental capacity, even bringing in her trauma awareness, although that Viktorija is still in the process of completing the certification. This trauma knowledge, the trauma awareness can be unimaginably powerful. So I would like to bring the question to Viktorija. How does a developmental approach help us move beyond fixing behaviors and implementing one-size-fits-all parenting strategies towards creating deeper, more sustainable transformation for both the individuals and family system?
Thank you for the question. I feel like I might repeat a few things that were said, but with trauma, we'll dig deeper into something here. But for the beginning about the development itself, what I believe it does, it adds context, right? So when we truly understand development, we stop asking, how do I stop this behavior? And instead we ask, what is this behavior communicating? And what developmental need is under it? So just to give a practical example for anyone, ever dealing with children, and I focus on early development, so those are mostly my examples. A 2-year-old having a meltdown in a shopping mall or tantrum, if you will, is largely different than having a 6-year-old who is having an anger outburst. Knowing that these two children are at a very different stages of development would almost completely change how we see their behavior, how we read what's under that, how we interpret it, so to say, and also how we would suggest parents to view it and what to do about it, how to address it. Children are constantly evolving, and in early years they do that rather fast. And we parents and educators, we have to keep pace, so to say. So what works for one child in one family at a particular stage of development can change rather quickly if even one of these variable changes. So understanding development actually allows us to have the right tools in our parenting or our coaching toolbox to see exactly what's happening in front of us. I wear glasses, so I'll use that example. Without them, because I don't have a really clear vision, I see everything blurry. So every child would be blurry and kind of similar to each other. When I have the right tools, when I have the exact right glasses, which is what understanding development and developmental stages is, I see that child clearly. Or to give perhaps an even easier to understand example, I've been doing some construction in the office recently. So when I want to drill a hole, I want to see someone drill a hole of a particular size, it's kind of useless and not effective and messy to use an axe or a hammer. We need a drill with a particular bit, with a particular attachment. And that's exactly what development is. So all these one-size-fits-all strategies, they can get us to compliance in a short run, but they wouldn't really give us the transformation. And actually, when working with parents, what I see, even if they come for a help with an immediate situation where they want what they crave, is a transformation of their whole relationship with their child and within their family.
Thank you, Viktorija. I think you are addressing a very, very important aspect because we know no family is the same, no child is the same. So thank you, Viktorija, for shedding light on that. And of course, I'm very excited to dive deeper within the short period of time we have today. I'm excited to talk about from also the trauma lens, how this can go even deeper. While I park that piece because it can be, I think it's good that we build up to that. So I would like to come back to Elodie because I know that you are someone who works with early childhood education. You have been in that area for a long time, and that's where your passion is. And also you bring the two worlds together, developing brain at the most formative years, and then their parent interaction and how these two the gaps being bridged. So Elodie, like I said, because you focus on the child-parent connection, I would like to hear from you through your experience. What are some of the most common challenges you have observed in the parent-child relationship today? Because you know that pre-COVID, post-COVID, the world is very different, right? And even if you just look at the decade ago, the world is very different. So today, the parent-child relationship today, what tends to get in the way of genuine connection between parents and their children?
And I think you mentioned the fundamental. I think one of the biggest challenge parents face today is we are trying to raise children in a world that's shaking every single day and that is changing. We are raising digital native, AI, social media. We are not. We are trying to navigate constant information, uncertainty, world that is changing. And at the same time, many of us are trying to break pattern, heal from our childhood experience, and apply everything that we know from expert, podcasts, books, parenting advice. So the intention is beautiful, but it can also create a huge pressure to become the perfect parents and the perfect coach, the perfect guide as well. We have more information than ever, and yet often less support, less community, and more noise. So parents, leaders, teachers are just overwhelmed. Children are overstimulated, and everyone is running. So for me, what gets into the way of connection is not really a lack of love. It's a lack of presence. We become so focused on doing the right thing that we forget to simply be with our children. You know, I remember one day my 10 years old daughter told me, "Mom, you never take time for me." So my first reaction could have been to defend myself. After all, I was doing a lot for her. But instead, I tried to stay curious. What was she really trying to tell me? And that question changed my full perspective. So together, we created a workshop around emotion because we know how it's difficult for children to handle emotion, even for us as adults. So we use yoga, breathing, movement, drawing, creativity. And what surprised me the most, that it was not only my daughter who was learning and growing about how to handle her own emotion and finding her own tool that speak to her. It was also my inner child showing up. And for the first time, I wasn't showing up as just a parent, a guide who needed to teach, to fix, to manage. I was simply present. And that's where genuine connection begins. Children need what they have always needed, a safe, available, emotionally available adult. But it's hard to be the safe place for someone when we are ourselves exhausted, stressed, disconnected from ourselves. That's why I believe the starting point is self-compassion. When we take care of ourselves, we slow down and we reconnect with who we are as an adult. We become more available to truly see the child and to meet them where they are. And if I have just to say a few words, for me, that I always remember is about self-compassion first, presence, curiosity, and connection.
I love it how you keep coming back to presence, Elodie. This is so beautiful. And yeah. And so as you talk about presence and the main element of the quality of the connection as the presence, now when that begin to strengthen, so the quality of the connection begin to strengthen, What changes do you see, Elodie? Talk to us about it, not just the relationship itself, but also you talk about the different aspects, developmental aspect of the child. So, but also how does that impact the child's confidence level, their emotional well-being, and overall development?
When connection begins to happen, actually something beautiful happens. So children no longer need to spend so much energy to seeking approval, protection, attention. They can redirect that energy towards learning, exploring, creating, developing their unique potential. I see children become more confident, emotionally resilient, willing to express themselves authentically. Not because someone told them about a new behavior, but because they feel seen, heard, understood. And I witnessed this through the parent-child experience that I facilitate. In one of the mother-daughter experience that I have done, I guided them through a simple sensory and movement journey. They slowed down, they held hands, looked into each other's eyes, and became fully present from each other, mother and daughter. And one of the top performing leaders were looking at me and told me, and it touched my heart at that time, I was almost emotional. She told me, I feel like I met my daughter for the first time. In another sensory baking experience, while our hands are busy playing, being messy and so on, the conversation became deeper. I invited each child to describe their mother with a simple word and explain why they had chosen it. What was fascinating me was the meaning the child gave to that word was often very different from the meaning than the mother initially attached to it. One mother became emotional because for the first time she was able to see herself through the eyes of her daughter. In both experiences, nothing has changed externally. There were no parenting techniques, there were no behavior strategy, no lesson to teach. What changed was the quality of connection. And that's what connection does. It allows us to move beyond routine, expectation, performance, assumption, and truly see each other. And when children and adults, we feel seen, then we begin to open up. When we feel safe, also, we begin to trust. When we feel trust, our confidence will grow. And from that confidence, we begin to build our own identity. So for me, it's about safety first, emotionally and safe environment, being seen, very, very key from being seen, confidence and identity.
Thank you, Elodie. I know that we have discussed about these experiences, but re-listening to them and how powerful they are, truly inspiring. Thank you for sharing. And as you are continue to talk about the quality of the relationship, I want to go deeper into it because I see that how hands-on you are with your coaching practice, which is also something that I deeply resonate. I do not just limit my practice to conversations because we are multidimensional being. We need to integrate them. So with that, Elodie, as we talk about the quality of the parent-child relationship, I want to dig deep into this with you. Tell us why this is often more transformative than the connection itself is more transformative than the behaviors or performances or even parenting techniques, because I see often what they want is the fix, the technique. Give me the technique. So tell us about it.
Yeah, we know that children learn far more from how we make them feel rather than what we tell them with words. So a parent will never forget, and a coach is a role model. So children are constantly observing us. They learn from the way we respond to challenges. We treat ourselves, we treat others, and how safe they feel with us in our presence. That's why connection is the foundation. When children, I was saying, feel safe, seen, valued, loved, they begin to be something incredibly powerful, a sense of self-worth. And self-worth change everything. Instead of spending their lives searching for external validation, approval, recognition, they begin to trust themselves, their voice, their own value. And you know, one of the biggest questions that I have, and I love doing parallelism between parenting and leadership. So in my leadership coaching, the biggest question I have is, what is my value? And so many adults spend their life trying to understand and answer this question. Let's give this gift to the little one. So the quality of our earliest relationship plays a significant role in shaping that answer. And the goal is not simply to raise well-behaved children. The goal is to raise self-aware, emotionally healthy human beings who they know who they are, what they stand for, and who can navigate life from a place of inner peace and security rather than external validation. And we know the earlier we start, the better. That neuroscience teaches us that earlier, 0 to 6 years old, are critical for brain development. Children are absorbing far more than we once believed. Every single interaction, every single relationship, every single environment contribute to the foundation that they will carry throughout their lives. That's why I believe every parent, every guide, every teacher, every leader, every coach should have this foundation of human development knowledge. And that's why we are specialized coaches as well, to try to enlighten the journey for everyone in this parenting journey. So it's about connection, self-worth, and inner validation here.
Elodie, thank you so much for sharing. And what I'm hearing, the more you speak about it, I think we are going to do with each these practitioners, we will have an individual conversation, because as you can see how much of insights coming up. But given we have only limited time, Elodie, thank you for sharing. And what I'm hearing is, especially at the most formative years of a child's life, what the practice and how you're speaking about is this is attachment theory in action. All I'm hearing is the connection, the more we create a self-secured child with a secure attachment, the self-worth is not something that they have to grow up and go to some workshop and learn. So thank you, Elodie, for creating. So this is what I mean, colleagues, becoming a developmental catalyst in generation to come. Now think about just impact that. I'm not going to say much because I know that all of you are here, amazing reflectors and thinkers. That's why you are here. So I leave it up to you, right? So with that, Elodie, thank you very much. And I would like to now build on to the conversation moving forward with Lara, because Lara brings a completely different dynamic into this conversation. Now, Elodie is someone who works with early childhood age groups and their parents, and you can imagine how important that age group is. At the same time, we also know that the youth, the adolescents, preteens, this is an age group no one wants to actually even work with, because you know how challenging they can be, because we have a lot of stereotyped adolescents, teens, and it's heartbreaking, to be honest. So Lara, so this is for you, and I would like to address few aspects of this part of our discussion. Now, those who are in the program, you know that we have a very special, unique framework we introduce within the specialization, which we call the Ignite 360 Panoramic Parenting Vision Model, PPV model, which is approved by ICF and which was developed through a developmental and ecological systems perspective throughout our research. And many parents come to coaching focused on solving immediate challenge. This is what we have been saying, whether it's behavior or communication or academic concerns or emotional, whatever it is. Sometimes I have to tell them, wait a second, I do not have a magic wand, abracadabra, and I can give you a new child, because I'm not trying to shame or blame parents, because when we are in that kind of desperate situation, that's what we want. But through the PPV model, Panoramic Parenting Vision Model, Lara, you help parents to step back and really look at their family system. Where am I? What am I doing? How am I really impacting my child? And I know that we have been discussing about some of the really interesting concerns that came up through our specialization, through our mentoring session. So I would like you to shed some light on shed light here, because I know this is a blind spot not only for parents but also for some of us practitioners. So tell us, Lara, what have you learned about the blind spots parents often carry when they first enter this process with you?
It's a really very important question to start with. And I have to also be very honest with everyone here. First of all, it was a blind spot for me too. I mean, yeah, I do have experience with coaching and I've done several certifications, but none of them I was really exposed to that much of a depth. So speaking of which, you know, coaching skills alone are not enough. Yes, this is absolutely true. I worked, or if I have to say, the parents that I worked before discussing their own perspective, the kids were, I was helping them find their own voice. Teens, as you were saying, I was supporting them through seeing their parents' perspective, you know, as much as their parents seeing their own perspective, or the parent coming for help because they want to have a better communication with their child, you know. So there's always one story, one perspective, and one expectation. All right. And one example I have to give is the youngest that I have coached ever was a 9-year-old, and everything was going fine. You know, the parents were respecting our confidentiality. Nobody was getting into what's happening every now and then, until there was a conflict. And I didn't really have any information, or, you know, I didn't have any knowledge about how to deal with parents back then. And I really had to think creatively. And I thought, this kid alone cannot succeed. We need to talk to the mom, because he said she was his support. And then another time he had another conflict, and we brought the dad into the conversation, which made me really realize that, I mean, it's a whole system. It's not just that the kid comes to coaching because he needs help. So that's a really big blind spot. Now, there's another one that I coached, and it was a parent that was convinced that her son, he's a teenager, and she was convinced that her son was the problem, you know. And it's just because of some patterns, some behavioral things that showed up at home. And the more we went into depth, the slowly we got into, you know, talking from one thing to another, about the challenge. Actually, you know, the expectations were high. She realized also the patterns, the communication patterns between her and her child were so rigid. And also the pressure of the surrounding was playing a big role. So you can see 3 totally interconnected but independent things to consider. So yes, this framework helps us as practitioners, and it also helps parents to see the different perspectives, to see the different factors that play a very important role into what's really happening. And this is definitely what shifts the whole conversation into new possibilities. So that all from my own professional experience, you know. If I want to tell you, just take a little bit about you know, how it is important for parents. Imagine, you know, thinking about it from a 360 degrees. Okay, some of them they accept it, some of them they don't. Some believe that this is a crucial exercise to do. Others relate to things in their past. some parents, like this lady, the mom, she said, I want to take the challenge. You know, she saw it's really a big thing. Some of them took time to grasp the weight. You know, the whole model uncovers a lot, and when it does, wow, I have to say, wow, it opens doors that you have never ever thought about them. Okay, in so much meaningful ways. So the blind spots are just about how you don't focus just on the child, but you focus on everything around the child. It's about not what is happening right now, but what is influencing what's happening right now, you know. And you've mentioned quite often during our time now, the quick fixes. Because we don't have to be judgmental also here, but we have to say that because we're all living, you know, in this fast moving world, some parents come for quick fixes, but it doesn't work that way. So this model is a big proof that quick fixes are short-lived and they're not there to stay forever.
Thank you, Lara, for sharing that. I think that is so valuable what you just said, and I'm coming to that. And I think what you said about the quick fixes and then combining this with what Elodie said earlier, presence, and most parents struggle, that there is no shame. Parents, there is no guilt here. It is difficult. It is absolutely difficult for those reasons that our colleagues mentioned, because we had our own childhood too. So I remember as you speak, Lara, one of my professors recently I completed my one of my certifications at Stanford Medicine, and my professor said parenting is one of the most powerful personal developmental tools. And I could totally see where and how that is so relevant to what you are discussing here, Lara. So as you talk about that, making the importance of making parents become aware of the blind spots in their family system, Lara, when that happens, what becomes visible when they go deeper into those layers? That when they see the things that they didn't see before, what happens then?
Many things, I have to say. Just to keep everybody in the loop, okay? When we talk about the family systems in our course, we learn a lot about 5 important systems. I'm just gonna give you a quick example so that you can relate to what we're talking about. We talk about the direct relations, the emotional state, we talk about the connections, the social influences, the indirect influences, but still are very important factors, like even, you know, how the mom or the dad's work is helping or not, or influencing their mood or not, you know, some things like that we never consider. The culture, the values, the intergenerational beliefs as well, you know, things that we get from our parents without even thinking. Most of it is how we raise our children in our own communities, you know. And of course, the time factor, you know, how change happens over time in the life of the parent or the child. So when we ask questions that are related to these systems, in my opinion, we hit the jackpot every single time, okay? During the coaching conversation, and coaches will agree with me, when there's an aha moment, when there's a big awareness inside a certain session, both the coach and the client feels proud. In my own experience, when I worked with some of the clients on the system, on the ecosystem, what becomes visible is like hitting the jackpot every single time we talk about one of these systems. So it's like a huge awareness that they come into the session, leaving with the session with so much more information. So the more the parent is willing, the more he or she wants to explore. This is where the learning happens. This is where they break the barriers. This is where they clear their way forward. So there's an example here. One of the fathers was concerned about his daughter's withdrawal, and he came to me and he said, how about we conduct some sessions and you can give her some confidence skills to learn, and I was like, okay, let's sit and talk a little bit more about that. And when we really explored these different systems, these different layers, we understood that she had been facing changes at school, some peer pressures, and even some tensions within the family. So the role of everything, was impacting his daughter. And this is why she was in that state of withdrawal. So giving her skills, additional skills, confidence, like exercises, things like that, is not going to do any good. So this is where we understand that it's even more powerful when we deal with each of these systems, and then we look at it, we zoom out and we look at it, from above. We can see how these pieces come together. And this is where really the parents start to connect the dots. So instead of micromanaging, I would say they just go into a macro-management type of parenting, where they do not want to just stick to one thing. They just want to look at it as a whole journey. So this is what I can say, honestly. It's very powerful because it doesn't show you how certain behaviors, for example, get on somebody's nerves in the family, or the parent is afraid that a certain event affected or will affect the kid, or how the child is behaving or is currently in trouble. Many parents come, for example, saying, they used to have good grades, now their grades are falling down. So what can we do? So yes, quick fixes don't help. It's just the dynamics, the roles, the environment, the parents' behaviors, their emotional state, many things that come into play.
Thank you, Lara, for really truly going deeper into practical aspect of it. And this is the exact intention of this discussion, because we need to talk about the reality, because most of the time, like some of you mentioned earlier, that we live in this fantasy land that, parenting is all going to be perfect, that now that I'm working with a coach or I have all these tools and model and so on. It's not. It's time that we get out of this fantasy and really talk about the real world. So thank you, Lara. I have one more question for you, Lara. Especially I want to hear from the behavioral management and reactivity perspective, because I know that, as in my professional experience, I know this is where parents struggle the most, because you're a teenager, you are pushing your boundaries. So if the parent is not aware of what is happening with the child, this can be problematic. So before I get to that, colleagues, Lara, please hold on, I'm coming to you. And I want to mention that the time that we allocated for our conversation today is 75 minutes. At the same time, we also allocate some time for, within these 75 minutes, we also allocate some time for Q&A. However, colleagues, I understand that some of you may not be able to stay the entire time. And as also you can see that lots of really truly valuable insights coming from our practitioners. So in case if we exceed the time, if you have to leave, I completely understand. And the session is being recorded. That's why we are recording the session. So in case if you have to step out and you would like to continue with the rest of the conversation, it will be available within a reasonable time. Our team will be working on that. So with that, those who might be in a little bit of a rush to leave, as you know that we also will be enabling CCE credit for this session. So I'm going to share the link here. Feel free to gain your value for your time that you are learning and developing as a professional coach, or whatever your profession is here, colleagues. But given that this is a coaching conversation, so feel free to receive that credit. And Yeah, and I see there is a question, and we will address that specifically when we discuss with Viktorija, because she's going to talk about some ethical boundaries. However, before we get to that level, let me first address with Lara one more question. Lara, you are hitting on the the right nail. So here I want us to talk about now this awareness. This is like you said, right? I love the way how you refer to this as hitting the jackpot. That's exactly how I feel about the situation as well. When they see that, I'm like, yeah, now we are on to something. So let's see where this is going to go from here. So thank you for sharing that and building on to that, Lara. When they become aware of those when they come to realize those things from the perspective of managing behavior and reactivity, what changes occur?
Well, actually, there's a huge shift, okay? The shift happens because it's not anymore a matter of managing a certain situation. It's looking at it from the present to the future. It's like you're shaping the future of your relationship, the future of the kid, the future of the way things should really, you're building a foundation, I have to say. So the transformation really happens there. And I also have to note here that transformation really happens when the client wants and seeks, okay, and doesn't give up. And when you need to have patience as a parent, this is where you're going to win at the end of the day. The model really has a dual effect. It can positively transform you as a parent, of course, or as a family, because it gives you more awareness, it gives you clearer answers. The blind spots, they're just easy for you to understand. You can also learn from the repeated behaviors. You don't make the same mistake again, like previously tried actions, or even some things that are impossible for you to solve. You really look at it from a different perspective when you go through that model. And the other thing is, and this is where really I love the most, because this is where it's important to give some space for the parent, then come back to it, and it leaves the parent with a lot of reflection, a lot. Like some people come, they want to do this, that, and it's very clear. And when we work on that panoramic vision, there is so much to uncover, yes, but at the same time, it leaves them with so much reflection. So if someone has 5 objectives to hit, okay, to achieve, sorry, probably they will have 10, and even probably more, because the perspectives are so open. How these elements come together is important. How they have become a parent, makes them realize how this is affecting the relationship and how it's building the home that they're hoping to build. It makes them look at their present, but at the same time, understand how the past unfolded and how they want what happened previously to keep on going in the future. So these interrelated events, they're only there for you to understand something, and this is the only way you will be able to shift, to see the future, and to be able to shape your future in a more active way, I have to say, not passive way.
Thank you, Lara. I think what I'm hearing is it's not just creating that narrow visioned, just fixing based solution to truly understanding the root cause of the problem. If I'm reacting or overreacting, why am I overreacting? If my nervous system is dysregulated throughout the entire time I'm interacting with my child, which is their childhood, and we are going to leave imprint on that, what is in the environment that caused me to do that. Therefore, I create a change within so that I show up to my child in the age appropriate way rather than expecting my child to meet my adult needs. And I see this is where the biggest change happens. Parents really becoming truly motivated to go beyond that behavior management and reactivity-based parenting to, like you said, from present to really generational transformations. Because when we look at, we know that there are parents who have done everything right for their children, provide all the good education, everything. But we know there are children and adult children and parents that they can't spend more than a weekend under the same roof. So what happens? And right, so those things can be solved at a very early stage when you help someone go through such a panoramic vision. So thank you, Lara, for sharing those insights. I think you are opening the floor for Viktorija to really come in and get the conversation even to a deeper level, because as we said earlier, Viktorija is in the process of completing her trauma certification. So she is a trainee trauma-informed practitioner working with parents, families. And I know that you have had the opportunity to, Viktorija, witness how past experience can continue to influence present-day relationship in parenting. And I also know how passionate you are about this topic. So from your experience, Viktorija, how does unresolved trauma tend to show up in conversations, just as simple as conversations with parents? And I'm going to combine another question here. And how do you see these experiences influencing the way parents respond to their children while having to regulate their emotions and shape the culture and the emotional state of the family system?
Yeah, I think the reply to this might be something you were looking for when you mentioned that house in which parents cannot be with their children and vice versa more than a certain amount of time. Most often, trauma doesn't show up as a story about trauma. Here we're aware of our trauma and we work on that. That can happen for individuals who have become aware of that. But mostly when I work with parents, it shows up in patterns, which, because of being trained in trauma-informed coaching, I can see, and that can be a hint to think, okay, something might be going on that's deeper here. It's deeper than the so to say regular quote unquote parental stress and struggles of everyday parenting. Before I continue, I want to acknowledge that for some people this might be really personal and potentially triggering topic. So if anything comes up for anyone who now still stayed on a call, please be gentle to yourself and listen with kindness for whatever comes up for you individually. And I also think it's important to mention here, for those who are not particularly familiar with trauma, or maybe just know it from something they have had somewhere, that trauma is not necessarily only about these horrible, life-changing, dramatic events. An example that comes, to mind from movies is losing parents in a car crash or a natural disaster, or being sexually or physically abused in a household. That's what we call capital T trauma. And here we talk about the small T trauma, which it's kind of the sum of all the everyday experiences we've had, let's say in childhood, but not necessarily, that left us feeling unsafe, feeling like we're not loved enough, unheard, unseen, alone, or rejected. So that's why, we talk about trauma not as something that happened. So the focus is not on the event itself, but more about how it affected a person and how it affected the nervous system that then, because of that event and because of, its inner response to it, had to adapt to cope. So something changed in the nervous system for it to be able to cope. And that's why two people can go through the same experience and be affected very differently by it. And especially when we talk about children, if the impact of a certain, I'll say, series of events, or something that was repeated, not necessarily a one dramatic thing, if the impact was more than their nervous system that was still developing and was not fully mature, if it was more than they could handle, especially if they didn't have a safe adult to reflect on that experience and help move through or work through that experience, that can be traumatizing. So then we go back to talking about parents and how this shows up in parents, or when we have parents as clients. When they describe feelings of overwhelm by behaviors that seem minor at the beginning, or they become highly reactive, highly aggressive, or withdrawing and escaping kind of from their reality, or freezing in certain situations. Or what very often happens when we see that they're struggling with deep-seated guilt or shame or perfectionism or control, or just having this feeling of disconnect from their child or the children who they love more than absolutely anything in the world. This is where we pause and we can, consider potentially that there is some trauma. So what we frequently discover when we dig deeper is that these parenting challenges that parents come to us with are actually triggering old experiences and beliefs and unmet needs in a way. So what's happening is that the child or children's behavior is completely unintentionally, due to no fault of child or parent intentionally, touching parents' own feelings of what happened in the past that were kind of, were part of the past, their own memories and their own emotional wounds. So this doesn't mean the parents are doing anything wrong, right? It simply reminds us that parenting is one of the, and I think one of you said that before, one of the most powerful relationship and relational experiences we can have. And then it often brings in the room our own developmental history. When these patterns stay unconscious, they can negatively shape the whole emotional climate or fabric of a family life. And that will then, of course, adversely impact the child and their healthy development. And in contrast, when they become visible with the help of trauma-informed coach or anyone who's dealing with trauma, if it's something that's deeper, and we'll come to that, then they create opportunities for parents to be aware of that, to feel that they have a choice to stay calm and ultimately to change how they show up for their children. There's a practical example I think anyone who has ever met any child can relate to. So let's suppose you tell a child no, right? There's something that you don't want them to do. Or if we do it in a neuropsychologically better way, we would tell them what would we like them to do instead. And the child can say no. It doesn't have to be this super emotionally intense toddler screaming no. It can be a calm, slightly not interested 10-year-old who just says no. And some parents, just by that one word, can be sent to rage, yelling, and just spiraling up and threatening. For some others, that would be withdrawal and disbelief and so much of, in things happening inside and doubting themselves as a parent in their parenting skills. And some can just essentially freeze and not really know what they can do about it, right? Where they want to go from that. And if we just focus on coaching parents about what to say, how to effectively communicate a boundary, we can do that rather easily. Almost anyone can follow the script. But the energy with which we come to that with our children, with parents or educators really come to the situation with the children, it's more about the nervous system responding to something from the past and not this particular child who is saying this particular no. So what's happening then is that the nervous system of a parent or an educator is actually to a large extent going back into the part of themselves and their past when it was not safe to express a need. And this, where it was not perhaps in a household where it wasn't even welcomed to share any emotions as we were growing up. And again, this is not the one example where we were told, no, you cannot get a pony, right? I'm exaggerating here for you to understand. This was something where we were continuously not being allowed to share or feel our feelings or our say our wishes, our opinion, and so on. So basically, in that moment, the parent's nervous system is being hijacked and is reacting to the past experiences. And what happens is that child is then going to learn that they're going to see that as a model, and most likely they will learn that in one way or the other, not necessarily the same kind of response. And they will then grow into adults who will hopefully not, but still repeating that unless they work with someone. Sorry, Lux, I didn't hear you. You're muted.
Oh, sorry. I was speaking to myself.
Okay.
That's how deeply I was into the sharing. And so thank you, Viktorija, for thoroughly addressing that. And I really like how you shed light on the unmet needs of the parent and that nervous system, the reactivity as a nervous system hijack, because I think that brings so much of compassion to parenting world. And this is what I said, colleagues. Most parents are expected to be the superhero, super mom, super dad. This is a very, in my opinion, it's a very unhealthy expectations that we place on parents, not realizing that parents themselves have had their own childhood. And so you can imagine why the parenting is the most powerful parenting tools, like Viktorija said, when the one word of the child, when they show up, rather than going with this, all the methods and techniques and tools, like Viktorija said, what is missing is that energy, because they can't get to that state because there is a younger version of themselves internally in conflict with how they want to show up as a parent. So thank you, Viktorija. This is so profound. And now I see we also have one of our colleagues. There are some questions. So yes, exactly, Susanna, thank you for sharing. And I am so glad, Gochi, you are resonating with that. And also I see Eva is asking about the model and the interest in coaching, the parenting coaching program. Please allow me to come back to that question maybe towards the end. And also I see a question here from Venus. How do you differentiate between therapy and this from coaching? This is a crucial question. So Venus, thank you for asking that question. I appreciate your intentionality, understanding that there is a huge difference between the two professions and how we need to operate ethically while managing all these complexities. So now I hope, colleagues, you understand how really complicated when you operate as a developmental coach. Because think about it, a parent is not a program something that show up. The conversations will naturally bring their childhood trauma to the surface. So if you do not have the skill set to address that without crossing the boundary, now imagine the damage that you create. Instead of creating the result like Viktorija explained, what you will do is we re-traumatize the parent, which is even more unhealthy for the child and for the entire family system in generations to come. So now, Viktorija, I think this is a good place for us to address as a developmental coach, also being informed with trauma. We know that one of the distinction is the understanding how to work in a trauma-informed way while within this ethical boundary. So how do you navigate this balance, and why is it so important when working with children, parents, and families?
I think for any and all coaches here with us, it's really easy to remember the formula that therapy is more about the past and present, and coaching is more about the present and the future. So as long as we don't lose track of that, as long as we don't lose track of the fact that coaching is not supposed to be working in the past, but especially as trauma coaches, it can take past as a context to help us to work on present with the parent, on present and future, we're good to go. So being trauma informed is not about treating trauma. It's about recognizing that trauma may be present and ensuring that our coaching approach remains safe, ethical, and appropriate for the client in front of us. So we know that as coaches, we don't diagnose. And in terms of trauma, we don't process traumatic experiences with our clients unless we have that extra qualification for that, but that's a kind of a different story. So our role as coaches is always to create safe conditions where clients can develop deeper awareness. That's what all coaches know about coaching. Now, in case of trauma-informed coaching, this deeper awareness may be the awareness about the existence of trauma in the past, or about patterns, how that trauma shows up in our current lives for ourselves as individuals and in our parenting with our children and for our children. And then we also keep working exactly as coaches who are, not trauma informed, on strengthening the resources of the client and moving towards their goals. So being trauma informed also means that we clearly see when coaching is no longer the most appropriate support, or that it at least needs to be supplemented with a different kind of support. And that's where these strong ethical boundaries and just knowing what we're doing in terms of ICF frame of ethics and referral pathways become essential. And I like Lux that already mentioned that. I want to underline that too, that with trauma, if we don't know what we're doing, in a worst case, we can do harm. We can re-traumatize a client, and also we can leave them in a condition in which the trauma is more negatively affecting their lives and perhaps the lives of their children, if it's a parent, than before, how it was before they came to us to work with us as a coach. So it's really important we know what we're doing.
Absolutely, Viktorija. I think that's one of the, for me, from your sharing, that's one of the key insights for me personally as well. The knowing what we do and staying in our lane, right? Sometimes we feel like, oh no, maybe I can give this advice, nothing, because I have experienced that, so maybe I can talk from your experience. No, we cannot. That can be extremely damaging. We do not know anyone's past for sure. Even if someone has told their entire life story to us, we haven't experienced, our brain hasn't experienced it the way their brain has experienced. And this is exactly what, from her first question, Viktorija talked about what is trauma and how does the brain decide it's trauma? It's different from person to person, colleagues. So we should never assume such and such. We should always keep it open. And this is why I said it's so important as professional coaches, especially if you're operating only in a coaching capacity, we stick to our lane and we really only use the skills that we have and operate within the scope. So with that awareness, Viktorija, I would like to bring another question, which is, I would like to understand now, because you see that we already talk about quite a depth in developmental coaching. And I think when we add trauma, it gets even deeper. So when we go to that depth of a person's development and the history of development influencing the developing brain in question, what changes become possible? Not just the relationship, but also the behavior management, the connection, the core, everything that we have been discussing so far.
When parents are aware of their own triggers, of their own traumas, and their learned nervous system responses and patterns from the past, in essence, what they can do is they can clearly see and parent the child or children in front of them, instead of having anything from their past blurring that image with the unresolved emotional baggage. So, to build on a metaphor of glasses I used before, if understanding development was like having the right kind of glasses, trauma, when not addressed, is almost like putting a wrong set of glasses, and then everything is distorted. We see the child and their behavior and everything in a distorted manner. So everything is a bit off. So when we address that emotional baggage, we can build healthy relationships, first and foremost with ourselves and also with our children. And when we learn the learned responses of our nervous system, and ideally how to manage them, because when we learn them, only then can we manage them, then not only we do that for ourselves, but we model that for our children. We model how that's done. And that just creates this beautiful chain reaction. And that doesn't mean that there will not be a conflict in a family, but it just makes hearing each other, not just listening each other, but hearing each other and our needs and what's under of the behavior that's being communicating so much easier. It makes communicating our own needs much easier. And even when the rupture in the relationship happens, say between parents or a parent and a child, irrespective of their age, of the child's age, it just makes that rupture repair much easier and feels less threatening.
Thank you, Viktorija. I think this is a whole topic for another conversation. So like I promised colleagues, I don't know if I will be able to host a live session, but I will try my best to bring our practitioners in live discussion. So I see lots of valuable questions coming up. Thank you so much, colleagues, for being so intentional with this conversation and sharing all your questions so sincerely. And we will address these questions. And this is why I said the live discussions help us interact with each other. But I would love to dig deeper into these topics our colleagues, our practitioners here sharing. So we will come to you with in-depth more insights with these topics. I have one more question for all of our colleagues, our practitioners today. At the same time, before I invite our panelists to share their final insights and address the final question, I would like us to look at some of the questions that coming up so that we also do not leave any of you in case hanging there, right? So I think Venus, Viktorija thoroughly addressed how do you differentiate between therapy and form of coaching. She tapped into the mechanism of it, even what is therapy going back in the past and coaching from present to future, and then understanding that you are stepping on two different worlds. This is why I'm saying that it's like walking on the tightrope, right? So something that we need to be done very carefully. And then we also have a question from Eva, I think. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, colleagues. Could you please tell where is the possible to learn panoramic parenting vision tool? You are ACC and going towards PCC. You are interested in parenting coaching. Thank you for your interest, colleague. And I think if you visit our website, you will be able to find the information about that. At the same time, the model that we are talking about, the panoramic parenting vision model, is something that we develop at Ignite Global, which we approved by ICF. So this is our trademark, and this model is not available in public. This is only available to our CADP specialists. And because it's not just about making the model available, it's about the mechanism behind the model, delivering such a complex model in a way that Venus already addressed the question without crossing any boundaries, because obviously you can see when we go into someone's ecosystem, of course, it's all going to be trauma talk. So we need to know how to really deliver, facilitate the model. And this is why it's not available to public. It's only available to our specialists. And also, however, if you are interested to learn about it in the future, I will very soon I will write about the model. And while I provide you with that content, also there are some blogs that I have written about the system, the theory behind the model. Feel free to check out our blog section at Ignite Global. You will find lots of materials, colleagues, and I hope that will be valuable until I perhaps have a discussion specifically on the model. And then thank you, Susanna, also for your insights. And I also see Nasma say, what extent can a child's overreaction can be understood as a response to an unmet emotional need? Panelists, any of you would like to address that? Or?
I can do that.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Nasma, for your question. Basically, to put it in simple terms, I want to mention that this is something I always talk about. There is no bad child and there is no bad behavior. The only reason why we call it bad at some point is because the child insists. And when the child insists, it's coming from a place where there's an unmet need. Yes, the child can be consistent. The child can be obsessive sometimes. The child can take it in any way possible to be heard. Okay? So if the child is overreacting, there is a reason behind it. And just like also Viktorija said at the beginning, an overreaction of a child who is 2 years old is different from a child who is 6, 7, 12, 18. And there are so many things to look into in order for us to understand the reason behind that. But yes, it could be, to answer your question directly. And it's beautiful how you put it, only because you're now seeing what we have learned during this course, which is there's so much behind just a simple behavior. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. I would like to add to that, just to build on to what Lara said very briefly. Now, the moment there is the word overreaction, this indicates to me automatically by default there is an unmet need. Because like Lara said, and also Viktorija very thoroughly from a trauma lens explained that overreaction means there is something unseen in the environment in a child's case, because a child, what is a child? Everything a child has is a developmental need. So if they are overreacting, it can be attention seeking, it can be hitting, it can be biting, it can be talking back, whatever that we perceive it as overreaction, that to me already indicates that there is some kind of an unmet need presence. And because at the end of the day, I think I want to highlight on what Lara said, behavior is communication. This is where most of us get fixed on fixing the child, not realizing that child doesn't know what they are doing. They are communicating their behavior, having understanding, as our colleagues very beautifully explained here, the developmental stages. Children doesn't have the brain cortexes developed to communicate to us verbally that this is my need. Like, for example, if I have a problem with someone, I will communicate to that person because I know how to, my brain is organized. But the child doesn't know. What they do is they behave. And what we do is we label it as a misbehavior or whatever that is. So like earlier, Elodie was talking about the attachment. Like, for example, attention-seeking child is an attachment-seeking child. So if we see an overreaction, it's always recommendable to dig deeper into what is the developmental need? Why is this child behaving out of character? So I hope that addressed your question, Nazma. Thank you, Lara, also your valuable insight there. And then I also see another...
May I also add something to this, if possible?
Absolutely. Of course, Viktorija, please.
I think to Nazma and anyone, I mean, I love the question also. For me, I think language is really powerful. And I don't mean language we use to communicate to each other, but the language we use inside our inside. So as long as we say the overreaction, it already includes a bit of judgment that it's something out of ordinary, this overreaction. So if we just called it a reaction, that would set a tone for a more neutral response and more neutral curiosity without already placing it into a certain box. And the question was, to what extent can that be understood as a response to unmet emotional need? And, you know, I see a lot in the clients, I'll call them of this generation, approximately my generation, who are having kids now. We have a lot of information about emotional needs. And I love that. I love that finally it's not just about sleep and rest and eat and you're good to go. You know, then you take care of all your child needs. There are emotions involved. But sometimes it doesn't have to be an emotional need. A child's reaction can simply be that they're hungry, that they're sleepy. So in some parents, I actually see this brain going immediately to, oh, we must be doing something wrong in our parenthood. We haven't met an emotional need. It doesn't necessarily have to be so. It could be, but it's not necessarily so. So to that extent, I feel like we need to check all boxes before we come to the conclusion that we're doing something really wrong and child is overreacting because of that.
Absolutely, Viktorija. Thank you very much for adding that piece. I think that's a valuable piece here, because this is also why in the specialization, we also go thoroughly into the sensory development aspect of the child, because just like Viktorija said, it can be attachment, it can be any emotional need, but it can also be some other need. So I like how you pointed out how we frame things and how we see things, Viktorija. I think that's powerful. So without any judgment, we just look at the behavior as behavior without assumptions. I love that. And I think that's what truly creates the transformation, because that way we are not stepping into fixing a child. We are trying to understand where is it coming from, really. So thank you for that. And then I also see Venus has another very valuable question. In today's world, there are more single parents or nuclear families with less interaction with extended families. How does this impact kids, and how do you coach these kids or parents who need to be more than just themselves?
I would love to answer this one from my own personal experience. So I have 3 girls, 10, 8, and 2 years old, and I'm separated from their father. So I am a single, actually, parent system, let's say. However, their father is still very much present. For me, what Lara was saying, looking through the lens of coaching helped me to understand the parenting vision. And although I'm not anymore with the father, I still want to make sure that we are aligned in terms of values. We are aligned in terms of vision. Where do we stand today? Where do we see ourselves tomorrow? And that's very important because both of us, even if we are not together anymore, we have a huge influence to their life. And for me, this is really key. Second point is because I wanted to rethink about the dynamic between the interaction that I had with my children and so on. And most of the time I am with them. So it was very important for me to understand the specific development needs of every single age milestone. I'm not talking, it seems simple, but very truly. I'm not acting or guiding the same way my 10 years old, my 8 years old, and they just have 2 years differences, and obviously my 2 years old as well. For me, the way I embody it as a mother first is to be this safe place. Because I know if I'm able to be this safe place for them, yes, they are granted enough, they are aligned enough to actually be themselves and to go to this world that is shaking again every day and know not exactly, but be confident, develop self-confidence. So we are not talking here about academics and so on. We are talking about life skills, actually. And being a single parent or being maybe, I'm not that kind of family system, but with 10 people around me, for me, it's all about who are we, just actually a safe place for them.
Thank you, Elodie, for sharing your personal experience. We truly appreciate that sincerity and really coming up with the really very honest answer. And I think more than looking at from a professional perspective, I think you are adding so much value here as a parent who is experiencing what we are just the question itself. So thank you. And I don't think I need to add anything there. So thank you, Elodie, for addressing that question, and I hope Venus, you have a satisfactory with the answer. And so thank you for all your questions. And now I would like to, given that we have already passed our time a little bit, but thank you for your patience and staying back and also watching the video later. So thank you, colleagues, for your truly interest. Now, for our panelists, when we look back, if you are to look back at your journey, and I would like to invite you to share your reflections on how this journey transformed you professionally and personally. I'm not talking about the specialization practitioners, because we all know that we are going to transform through the certification, because it's an inward journey before it's outward. But what I'm asking is actually working hands-on with real clients and seeing it then and there. What is it for you? And also, I would like to combine this question with one last question. What words of wisdom as a final takeaway from your end, a practitioner in action? What would you tell our audience? Elodie, would you like to begin?
Just to conclude, I often thank you for the question, and I often smile when I hear those kind of questions, because, you know, as a mother first, as a leader of extended teams in corporate world, working in nursery for years, I thought I know a lot about people. And what this journey just taught me again is learning never stop. And actually, as guide, I always think and must reflect on myself first as a parent, as a coach. And that's professionally, that gave me a deeper understanding of the complexity of the child development, of parenting today. Personally, it made me more humble, intentional, curious. And then, I spend less time trying to find answers, but rather asking questions just to pull every single judgment on the side and just be present. That's why, for me, what I'm trying to remember every day is I don't shape children. We don't shape children. We just create the condition in which they grow. And we know everything matters. So if I have just to reflect on a few words that I remind myself every single day, and again, sorry for repeating them, but it's about connection, curiosity, and one of the very important one for me, linked to self-worth. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you, Elodie. Lara, how about you?
Yes, would love to go next. I'm gonna divide my answer into three. Personally, I mean, it changed the way I support my family. I came into this course primarily thinking about my own family, and then seeing how curious it could be to delve into other things. So, in supporting my own family and even my own kids, this has changed me profoundly. And funny enough, um, during family general discussions, like with my mother, with my sister, there's like a machine in the back of my head, always scanning, thinking, assessing. And it's interesting because I'm a very curious person, and I think I am also creative. It just opened my creativity and my scope even better. And I love it. On a professional level, I mean, it gives me more depth while working with families, but a lot of more responsibility. Because in the session and beyond the session, and what the client takes from the session is a huge responsibility after, the specialization and after going through all of these discoveries together with the client. To a greater extent, I mean, there's a huge trust between us as coaches and the clients. And when it comes to parents and families, it's even bigger, because we're dealing with something that is very much personal, very much close to the person, to the heart, to the feeling. And I do feel confident, yes, and knowledgeable more, but I do feel the bigger responsibility there. If there's one thing that I would give out of my experience and just like an advice, it would be simply to trust the child, listen to the child. Even if the child is not involved in the direct conversation, let the child be part of your thoughts, and you can have a side discussion with the child. They're very, very interesting and very creative. They can solve problems too. So always handle with love, always treat with love, and keep the children in the center of everything, even even in the small things that involve your family, that you think maybe the child is not interested, or it doesn't matter to the child, but it does. It does a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Lara. Viktorija?
Oh, God. Okay. I think there's just so much that's been said that I feel like I want to leave a lot of silence now for that to sink in and land for everyone, what my colleague said, but I'm aware of the time. So I think my coaching journey in the CADP and in trauma-informed coaching course, and then starting to work with parents as a coach and retrospectively, it made me see people in my life, myself included, my child included, and all of my clients, as much more complex human beings than what I think I previously thought. I think I used to feel that we're more of a puzzle to be understood, and it was really fun to kind of find all these pieces and see how they fit together. Whereas now I see us human beings as almost like I'm not an artist, this disclaimer, but like a beautiful canvas or a piece of art with so many colors where every experience adds a certain shape and color to that canvas, and it builds on top of each other. But the point is not the final result. It's the art itself, the process, the creation, the beauty, and the unfolding of a human being. And I really believe that's true for my coaching clients, for my friends, for myself, for everyone, really. And the message of wisdom, the second part of your question, I think it would be a message of hope. And from a trauma-informed lens, that would be that healing is always possible. Here in this conversation, I talked a lot about how parenting can be triggering for our traumas. But at the same time, the parenting journey can be very healing, and we addressed that. And I know, Lux, you addressed it at some point as well. And Lara spoke about love. So children, especially in the early years, the way they love, the way they're open, the way they trust, whether to parents or to educators, it's so pure, it's so raw, and that itself can be really healing for us adults in that life. And through caring for a child, we also begin caring for ourselves, like parts of ourselves that have not received something, for example, in the past, parts that are forgotten, that have been silent. And trauma-informed approach also gives us understanding that while we cannot change the past, we cannot delete, we cannot alter the trauma from our past, but we can change the way we view it. We can change the way that our body still responds to it, and we can stop it unconsciously affecting our present and the future, and the present and future of our coaching clients, and present and future of our children and their children. So that just gives me hope as a coach, as a parent, and just as a human being.
Thank you so much, Viktorija. Such profound in reflections, I think, all three of you together sharing. And I think the value of this conversation, the final take, as we discuss the final takeaways, I have written down myself so many pointers that if I'm to share out loud, it's so much value. Thank you so much, colleagues, for your sharing your truth, sharing your truth. It's not just about why, what are you doing with it, but also why you are doing it. So we appreciate your professional insight, your lived experiences, and truly these thoughtful reflections, sharing very generously today and shedding the light on some of these blind spots, not only for professionals, but also for parents, because after all, we all take, I think from all your reflections, my biggest takeaway is the responsibility that we hold for the life that we are nurturing. It's not something that we can just take lightly, colleagues. I really hope that this, if any insight that you are taking away, I hope that our colleagues shed light upon that. So also for all of you intentional human beings believing in this mission, thank you for joining us. And also for those who are going to be watching us later, this conversation, thank you for your truly interest, your presence, your curiosity, and your willingness to engage with a topic that has such a profound impact on children, families, and future generations. So before we close, I think adding up to all our colleagues' words, I think I would like to share a reflection. What comes to me as my reflection is that the profound words of Mother Teresa, I believe in these words every single day. if you want to bring peace to this world, go home and love your family. And I think what our colleagues sharing today is how to do it right, how to love our families in the age appropriate way. So, colleagues, if today's conversation has resonated with you, and if you would like to learn more about these well-esteemed professionals, our colleagues here, our Elodie, Lara, and Viktorija, coming from different expertise, having different backgrounds, I highly encourage you to connect with them, understand what they do, how they do it, create alliances, and expand your network. You will see when you speak to these human beings, you will see this is just what they had, like what, maximum 15 minutes each. But when you get to know these human beings, you will see how much of love, truly love, they bring into this profession. And I'm so deeply grateful. I something that every single day I thank the divine. The first thing I wake up and I thank these individuals, not only these three, but our network, because I know it's not something that we get to meet every single day. So if you would like, please do that. And colleagues, Elodie, Lara, Viktorija, please feel free to share your contact details and how our participants can connect with you in the chat room, so that they can directly approach you. And also, colleagues, those who are interested in exploring the Ignite Global, our professional work that we do, our certifications, our other programs. Also, we host master classes on a regular basis every month. Fernando offers 2 classes, I offer 2 classes, so especially on trauma and attachment child development. So if you are curious to know more about the work that Ignite Global do, feel free to reach out to us. You know where to find us. I'm not going to share any links or any presentations, except I will be once again sharing the CCE link, so that in case if you didn't sign up, please receive it, because you spend a lot of time here truly discussing the value of this discussion. So thank you once again, dear colleagues, friends, and practitioners who join our conversation today. I feel truly tremendously grateful, because like I said, this is not just a professional certification or just another profession that we are taking part in. This is truly a developmental moment. We might not see the impact that we create within our lifetime, but I guarantee you, colleagues, if we do something today, the result will be shown in generations. And this is what we see when Nelson Mandela took that very brave step, when Mother Teresa took that very brave step to do something bigger than themselves. They did create much larger impact that we are still talking about. So that's what I'm talking about. We don't need grand gestures. It can be just one parent. It can be just one child, that we create a true transformation, and that will have ripple effects in this world in the generations to come. So thank you once again, and I wish you a wonderful morning, daytime, afternoon, evening, whatever it is for you. And I look forward to seeing you very soon again. Thank you very much, and bye for today.